Today is Wednesday, June 4th, and we welcome you back to the Frozen Edge, your daily home for a deeper dive into the analytics behind the NHL's betting market, helping you craft your picks, props, and parlays, and the chase for sports' greatest trophy just about at the finish line. Today marking the start of the Stanley Cup playoffs. He's Timo Seppa, former senior manager of hockey analytics at the NHL. I'm Casey Ditzel. Timo, you got some time away from me. How was your weekend as we ramp back up here? One more series to go in 2025.
I'm fresh as a daisy. I think that's a line from a movie somewhere. Yeah, no, it's good. It was a good to have a few days off and do some different stuff. Had a good radio hit yesterday on NHL Network Radio, so would love to get a chance to chat about the Stanley Cup Final here with you as well, between the two of us, and expand on a lot of the ideas that I was able to say there. So, yeah, I used to be pretty good at making these Stanley Cup Final predictions. Obviously, I've been at NHL for the last 8 years, but before that, I was editor-in-chief of Hockey Prospectus. Don't go looking around the internet for hockeyprospectus.com anymore. But yeah, we did. It was my job to do the final predictions from 2009 onward, and I hit the team and the exact number of games 5 years straight from 2009 to 2013, including picking Pittsburgh on the road in 7 and picking Boston on the road in 7. So that was, I don't know, big gold star on my career of making predictions. So we will see if I do as well this time around.
Maybe a foreshadowing of what's to come here, and we'll see if Timo can do it once again. The conference finals yielded the exact same result as last year. Much quicker, though, this time, and pretty clear. We have the two best teams going at it in Florida and Edmonton, Timo. Both 5-game series between Florida and the Carolina Hurricanes, Edmonton and the Dallas Stars.
Yeah, obviously the teams that made the final deserve to get there. Again, like, I wonder what would have happened. I'm sure I've said this sometime before, like, if Colorado didn't melt down in Game 7, would it have been Colorado facing Edmonton, and how would that conference final have gone? Plenty of times that stuff happens like that, and you don't know. But interesting on a what if there. But yeah, Dallas and Carolina were not adequate matches for the teams that made the final. But just what we can take out of that going forward, not much, I don't think. I mean, Edmonton beat a Dallas team that looked like they were relying on the rush attack. And when Edmonton defended that well, Dallas didn't seem to have an answer. And Florida can score on the rush. They do, but they're known for the best forecheck in the NHL. So I don't see anything to take from how Edmonton did against Dallas again to the Florida series. And similarly, Carolina was beaten by a team in Florida that does what they do, but better and does more things. So yeah, two fairly dominant conference final wins, but I don't take a lot from those series going forward into the final.
Since the start of the salary cap era, this is just the second time we've seen the same teams match up in the Stanley Cup Final. That goes back to the 08-09 Red Wings Penguins matchup, Timo, where you would have been successful in your pick with the Penguins winning. It's also just the 5th time since the expansion era began in 1967. The two most recent, if you're going on conspiracy theories, would lean towards favoring Edmonton. Timo's going to hate that I'm saying this right now, but back in the 83-84 series with the Islanders-Oilers, Islanders won in 83.
Yeah.
In 84, Wayne Gretzky won his first cup. With that Penguins win splitting over the Red Wings, who the Red Wings won in 08. The Penguins came back in 09. It was Crosby's first cup. Can Connor McDavid do the same? Timo says that's a stat that probably doesn't matter too much. But looking at the series odds, Edmonton heavily favored -130, Florida +110. Timo, do you put any weight on that? I know the answer is probably going to be absolutely not.
I think it's historically interesting. So, I mean, like the narratives get written after the fact, obviously. So, I would say in the Edmonton Islanders case, and I was around somewhat. I was certainly being living in the New York area. I was paying attention to the Islanders when they won the four cups in a row. Um, did not pay attention to Edmonton's run as much. Something about my parents not having cable. But yeah, that was like one dynasty handing it over to another dynasty. You had this all-time team of all-time talent, including the best player ever in Wayne Gretzky. They're coming of age, and it was just like the end of the Islanders were good, but the end of that dynasty and handing it over to Edmonton. As far as um, the Crosby one, that's more recent, and Detroit was pretty heavily favored as a defending champion there. They were seemed to be a dynasty, and that was a dynasty that only got one cup there, or at least certainly Detroit had some cups in a longer span of time. But yeah, that Crosby Malkin team deserved to win a cup there, but they had to overcome a pretty good Detroit team. So that was very touch and go. That series obviously went to 7-1 in the final and in Game 7, all that.
Looking at last year, again, the rematch from 2024, it was kind of a series of two sides where Florida went and dominated games 1 through 3. Looked like they were going to maybe make a run at a sweep, a gentleman's
Yeah,
sweep somewhere in there. All of a sudden, the Oilers roared back, and in the first two games, hit unders there. But after that, you had 7 goals in Game 3 where Florida won, an 8-1 Oilers win to pick up their first and kind of find life. Then they won 5-3, 5-1
yeah.
before a tightly contested Game 7, ultimately Florida winning it at home. The big difference being this year, Edmonton is the home team for this series, Timo. But in the regular season series, it was Florida who had the advantage. Which side do you look more closely at between the regular season series this year and last year's cup? What are some of the things you're pulling out of those two factors?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the biggest thing to say is it's tightly contested. I mean, like it's weird because after 3 games in last year's final, it did feel like it was going to be a sweep. And boy, that would have been seen very differently as, Florida was dominant. Edmonton made it to the final, but they were disappointing. Um, the 2 games this regular season, yeah, Florida was 2-0. They were 1 goal games, 6-5 in December at Edmonton, 4-3 in late February at Florida. Um, yeah, these teams play close games. To me, the biggest thing to take out of this is, yeah, they play close games and they have a history from last postseason. So because teams from the other conferences, and that's who meets in the Stanley Cup Final, because you only play 2 games per season against each other, you don't have a lot of history. These teams have history because it's a rematch. So I think a lot of the machinations of how do we play against this team? How do we adjust? The coaches have there are a couple of steps forward in that thinking from where it would be for a fresh matchup. So I don't think that is advantage anybody, but I think it shows that these teams have some familiarity with each other.
Where do you see the 5-on-5 in this series leaning?
Yeah, 5-on-5. I would look at the regular season 5-on-5 numbers. Obviously, if you look at playoff 5-on-5 numbers, they're going to be based on who you were matched up against. So These were the second and third place teams in SAT percentage and shot attempt percentage at 5-on-5 in the NHL. Florida at 55.1%, Edmonton at 53.9%. So teams that you would look at by taking more shot attempts. It is a puck possession proxy, whatever. It's showing that you're doing more. You're having the puck more. You're taking more shots. It is a reflection of you doing well at 5-on-5. Obviously, goaltending plays into 5-on-5 as well. So if you look at goals for percentage, or let's say goals against. So Florida was very stingy at 5-on-5 goals against. They gave up 139 in the regular season. That was fourth best. Whereas Edmonton, despite being the third best team in SAT percentage, they were towards the bottom as far as giving up goals against at 5-on-5, 172. So only 23rd in the NHL there. So slight slight advantage to Florida there. I think we'll talk in a couple minutes. To me, this is more nuanced than looking at one team versus another team. This is more nuanced about talking about depth of lineup. Obviously, with Edmonton having the top end talent, but Florida having a lot of depth.
Goaltending, obviously a huge piece. You have the defending champion in Sergei Bobrovsky against the defending runner-up, Stuart Skinner, who continues to seem to prove us wrong here. He's gotten better and better as this playoffs goes on. We've been kind of anti-Skinner throughout this show. Has he shown enough that we think he can be a difference maker for Edmonton here coming up in this Cup final?
Yeah, did we even suggest that somebody put some money down, $10 down on a long shot Conn Smythe winner? I don't think he's going to be the Conn Smythe winner. I think if Edmonton figures out a way, it would be one of the big boys as far as scoring that would get the Conn Smythe. But he's making a run for that being more possible. Still, I mean, there's no way you can't say that Bobrovsky is the better goalie here. If you look at playoff numbers, regular season numbers, whatever, it's not a huge difference. And I think one of the things that, obviously we talk about the good Bob or the bad Bob. I'm sorry, the good Skinner or the bad Skinner. There's a good Bob and a bad Bob too. So Bobrovsky can be he can be hot and cold, and obviously Edmonton did well against him in games 4 and 6 last year. Anyway, just to break down Skinner, he's obviously been on a hot stretch, 6-1 through the last 7 games, with a 944 save percentage over that stretch and 3 shutouts, obviously. So very hot, but that's a hot streak. How long is that going to last? And some of that was against a Dallas team that I didn't think was that game, and I didn't think adjusted well. So, just digging a little deeper into those stats, and we'll lean on our friends at Stathletes, including Megan Chayka. Thank you. So since his first 3 starts, Stuart Skinner, as we stated, 944 save percentage versus 817 in the first 3 games. But digging deeper into that, scoring chance save percentage gone up from 649 to 865, big difference. Slot save percentage gone up from 756 in those first 3 games to 884 since. And rush save percentage, this is very telling, 800 going up to 958. So especially with Dallas, as I said, they were advanced stats showed that they were seen as a rush, a team that relied on the rush. The fact that Skinner did well against the rush is certainly speaks to why Edmonton was successful. What does all that mean? That means Skinner's been really good over the last 7 games. Overall, you've got to give the goaltending advantage to Florida and Bob.
Looking at some of the key injuries, Eetu Luostarinen and Nico Mikkola both expected back for game one. AJ Greer is questionable. Boquist would be the guy that steps into that spot. Probably we saw Nico Sturm play some time as well.
Mm,
He was in game five against Carolina. Zach Hyman, though, is the big story. He is
yeah,
out for the rest of the season. He was their leading scorer for a while going through the regular season last year, right up there with Draisaitl, right up there with McDavid. He is out for the rest of the series here going forward. Jeff Skinner and Victor Arvidsson both expected to slot in. Connor
right.
Brown listed day to day. Do any of those matter when you look at picking this series?
Yeah, Hyman's a huge factor, right? I mean, as you mentioned, 2 seasons ago, he had 54 goals. He's still put up, I believe, 27 this year. So I mean, big secondary scorer, and obviously people talked about how he upped his physical game big time. He's leading the playoffs in hits right now. So he taking him out of the lineup, especially with how much uh, depth advantage Florida has to begin with. To me, that is a big storyline and a big factor.
As we look at the rest of this series between these two teams, any other big stats standing out to you that you want to cover before we get into our predictions and a quick look at the Conn Smythe?
Yeah, we got a number of them here, and so like one, been kind of touching on it throughout is the Florida depth. So um, just taking sort of a arbitrary number of players with 11 or more points. Florida has got 9 forwards in Ekblad at 11 or more points, so 10 players. Edmonton, 6 players with 11 more or more points, but oops, one of them is Hyman. So they've got 5 healthy players, so half as many with 11 or more points. Obviously, they've got the big high end players with McDavid with 26 points and Draisaitl with 25, etc. Bouchard is in that group. Um, to me, that's a big difference. Obviously, score looking at points, that's not the only thing here, but the fact that Florida can score up and down their lineup to me is a huge story. If I were a coach in this position as Edmonton, I think I would look towards trying to spread out the scorers throughout the lineup to try to um, not just load up one line because that's just too fragile, too easy to defend against. So, um, yeah, I like Florida's depth a ton, and just like to amplify the fact, talking about the depth here. Um, just by coincidence, in the 2 regular season games this year, Hyman had 3 goals in those 2 games. Oops, he's out of the lineup now. Um, Lundell is someone who stood out in those 2 games. He was 1, 4, and 5 +5. Um, one of those super third line players for Florida. Whereas Janmark, who's one of the guys that Edmonton would look for depth, he was -5 in those 2 games. So I would worry about um, how Edmonton is going to match up against Florida's third line, including Marchand, Lindell, and Luostarinen. And can we call those guys the Rat Pack? Has that been coined? I mean, Marchand is the super rat of the league anyway, and then he joins Florida, so it just seems like a good name there. But yeah. I've got some other stuff too. How are we going to bat this around here? No, actually we haven't touched on special teams yet, have we?
I was just going to go there as we look at the last couple stats. Obviously, Edmonton's power play is the piece to their offense, but
Yeah.
Florida kind of known all around for their special teams talent. They dominated the power play against Carolina. Their penalty kills nothing to bat an eye at either. Who gets the advantage in your mind in the special teams for this?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of extreme numbers here, and so who knows? I mean, last year going into the final, who would have predicted that Edmonton would go 3 for 24 and Florida would go 1 for 21 last year's final? So, I mean, sometimes you just like throw up your hands and say like, oh, you looked at the stats and it just turned out different. Edmonton, 30% for the playoffs, and even hotter than that since those first two games against LA. However, Florida's PK is at 88% first over the course of the playoffs. So, that's strength versus strength there. However, Florida's power play has been good in the playoffs at 23%, and they're going against an Edmonton PK, which the numbers are awful for the playoffs at 66%. So I guess just looking at that, you would say advantage Florida, slight advantage there. But as I said, for last year's final, both teams struggled. So who knows? Maybe both teams' power play numbers come down a bit.
Let's jump to the Conn Smythe quick, then we'll give our series predictions on the way out here. McDavid, clearly the favorite right now, minus 120.
Hmm.
The next closest being Sergei Bobrovsky at plus 260.
Mm-hmm.
You got Barkov plus 420, and then some longer odds with Draisaitl 7-1, Matthew
Hmm.
Tkachuk 25-1, Sam Bennett 30-1, Carter Verhaeghe 50-1,
Hmm.
Brad Marchand 60-1, and cutting his odds by about 60% since we picked him or shadowed him. Stuart Skinner now 60-1, down from
There you
what was
go.
175-1 when you called that one a little while ago. Do any of those flash at you? You got to think Connor McDavid
Yeah.
kind of dominates the Oilers side, maybe Draisaitl there as well. But on the Panthers side, if they can come away with this one, you'd have to think maybe you have a chance at a longer shot odds winner.
Yeah, I just think with this matchup, I think both teams are going to put up some points. I think you know, I guess the series could go five. It seems like it'll probably be a longer series. So the goalies are going to pick up some dings. So I don't think the goalies are where I would go with the Conn Smythe. Sure, McDavid seems like a safe choice. I feel like if Florida wins, Barkov seems like he would be a good choice. Um, could you end up with McDavid winning twice in a row as a losing player? I guess you could end up with that. Some of the other names that you mentioned, at the longer odds, I guess Draisaitl is a good pick. So I mean, his numbers are basically equal to McDavid. So if he gets hot, I just like that on the basis of the odds. Bennett does lead the postseason with 10 goals, I think, at this point. So, you throw in a hat trick game from Bennett here or there. I don't think Bennett is a crazy option based on the odds given, but yeah, I think I would lean McDavid or Barkov there overall.
All right, time for the all-awaited series prediction. I'll get mine out of the way and clear the floor for you here with your reputation of successful picks. For me, it's the depth of Florida. I could go either way with this one, though. I don't think I'm going to be upset regardless of the winner. I'm rooting for Nico Sturm. I want to see Brad
There
Marchand
you go.
lift it. I'm going to go Florida in 7, but again, I could see this going either way. And obviously, the hockey gods or the storyline that the media is pumping up would be that McDavid comeback. So it's a
Yeah.
it's a tough pick. I think for me, I would just go 7 games. I like this one to go the distance, regardless. Your turn here, Timo. The all awaited big pick. You gave it out on the radio yesterday, but lock it in
Uh,
stone, cement it in here. Where are
yeah,
you
for
going with the series
yeah,
prediction?
for all the people that have XM radio, which is not everybody. So, yeah, let me be a little bit longer winded on this and see if make sure I catch everything that I missed here. Um, I think I think one of the things I want to look at again is odd man rushes. Last year in the final, Edmonton, according to Stathletes, uh, they were up on odd man rushes against Florida 26-13. I imagine that a lot of that came when they were making their comeback there in games 4 through 6. So that is odd man rushes is a big piece, and I do think that Florida has that in their game, but I think Florida has more than that in their game. We've talked about how strong they are on the forecheck and how they're the gold standard for the NHL, the way that that is played. So that is something interesting I'm keeping my eye on. I've mentioned several times here how Edmonton over the last 4 postseasons has done fairly poorly in games 1 through 3, won only 43% of them in the series that they've played. However, they come on strong in games 4 through 7 and they win 78%. And they have this streak of winning 9 game 4s in a row. So, given that, what do I think the series is going through 3 games? It's probably 2-1 Florida. But then if Edmonton has a superpower in game 4, all right, now is it 2-2 and Edmonton comes on strong late in series? I was leaning something like Florida in 6, but like putting all those facts together, that makes it harder for me to say Florida in that short a number of games. Another thing I look at here is that Florida went 7 games last year against Edmonton. They went 7 games against Toronto and were kind of life and death against Toronto this year. Does Florida do a little worse against Canadian teams? Is it the travel? Do they hate Canada? I don't know what it is. But I look at that as a factor to push this series longer. Um, I'll finish up with one more factoid here before I give my pick. It's that, and thank you to our friends at NHL Stats, including our mutual friend Jeremy. I was curious to see if this went 7 games. What's the track record of teams meeting 2 playoff years in a row uh, in a game 7? Doesn't matter what round, might not be the same round each year. In rematches, the first year winner was 6-1. So if you believe that's a thing and this goes to game 7, that might mean that Florida has a advantage there, even though it's on the road. So, all right, bringing all that together, I am repeating history from 2009 and 2011 when you were, I don't know, 10 years old or whatever. Um, I am going to pick the road team in 7. Yes, I could see Florida winning in 5. I could see Florida winning in 6, but let's go with the exciting pick. I am going to, after all of that hot air that I just blew at you, I am coming to the same conclusion as Casey Ditzel. Florida in 7. So.
Go. That's an agreed upon pick there. A unanimous Florida in 7 plus 470 odds if you want to follow us and pick the Cats to throw rats in Canada and block Connor McDavid becoming the next prodigy. Game
Yeah.
1 odds quickly on the way out. Florida
Yeah.
is the underdog there as well, plus 108. Edmonton minus 130 to kick it off at home. Pretty good odds for a team that starts strong, and Edmonton a little bit weaker in game 1, so maybe something to look at. I also like the over at plus 108. You could go with an alternate. It's 6.5, a little bit high line. Maybe drop it down to 5.5 if you're going to drop those two in a parlay. But Timo, probably the most anticipated day of the postseason outside of day 1 of round 1 of the playoffs here.
Yeah.
Very exciting. We'll be back again for game 2. Thanks for joining along. Final thoughts as we close it out here. A little long-winded, plenty of stats that we got through though, but it's well worth it ahead of the
Yes.
Stanley Cup Final rematch.
Yeah, no, awesome. Looking forward to it. I think it is a super intriguing rematch. In a lot of cases, think, been there, done that. Oh, let's get 2 new teams in there. These are exciting teams. You got this budding dynasty in Florida. You got the best player in the world and one of the next couple in Drysdale on the other side. Very, very exciting matchup. Um, can I make a Western New York reference since you live in Western New York here, actually? Um, could you see Edmonton making the final several years in a row, a la the Buffalo Bills from the 90s and
Or the
just
Sabres
never
from
win
that
it? Just
generation as well.
yeah, but like Buffalo made the Super Bowl 4 years in a row and lost. The first year was it the wide left or wide right? I
Wide
never
right.
remember what the Scott Norwood kick was. Buffalo, the closest they got was in that first out of four tries. Um, yeah, I don't know.
Oh no, we've lost Timo. A Buffalo Bills joke to close off the Stanley Cup Final episode, and hopefully for Edmonton, it doesn't go the way he was just alluding to. But that'll do it for our show here. Hopefully, Timo is back for the next episode. Big thank you to everybody who tunes in, and very excited for what's to come. Thank you to Connor Daru assisting our show, digging through some stats to help craft our plays. Make sure to like, follow, and subscribe. We're here on YouTube and Spotify as well as X. Today's show will just be YouTube, a little bit longer in form, but we'll be back to the normal game by game breakdowns. We'll have our game one picks as well tweeted later this evening. Daily episodes and game by game tweets to bring picks, props, and parlays to help you make your selections with stats-based analysis inside the NHL's betting market. He was Timo Seppa, no longer here. He'll be back next time. I'm Casey Ditzel, and until next time, this has been The Frozen Edge. Have a good one, everybody. Oh no, we've lost Timo. A Buffalo Bills joke to close off the Stanley Cup Final episode, and hopefully for Edmonton, it doesn't go the way he was just alluding to. But that'll do it for our show here. Hopefully, Timo is back for the next episode. Big thank you to everybody who tunes in, and very excited for what's to come. Thank you to Connor Daru assisting our show, digging through some stats to help craft our plays. Make sure to like, follow, and subscribe. We're here on YouTube and Spotify as well as X. Today's show will just be YouTube, a little bit longer in form, but we'll be back to the normal game by game breakdowns. We'll have our game one picks as well tweeted later this evening. Daily episodes and game by game tweets to bring picks, props, and parlays to help you make your selections with stats-based analysis inside the NHL's betting market. He was Timo Seppa, no longer here. He'll be back next time. I'm Casey Ditzel, and until next time, this has been The Frozen Edge. Have a good one, everybody. Oh no, we've lost Timo. A Buffalo Bills joke to close off the Stanley Cup Final episode, and hopefully for Edmonton, it doesn't go the way he was just alluding to. But that'll do it for our show here. Hopefully, Timo is back for the next episode. Big thank you to everybody who tunes in, and very excited for what's to come. Thank you to Connor Daru assisting our show, digging through some stats to help craft our plays. Make sure to like, follow, and subscribe. We're here on YouTube and Spotify as well as X. Today's show will just be YouTube, a little bit longer in form, but we'll be back to the normal game by game breakdowns. We'll have our game one picks as well tweeted later this evening. Daily episodes and game by game tweets to bring picks, props, and parlays to help you make your selections with stats-based analysis inside the NHL's betting market. He was Timo Seppa, no longer here. He'll be back next time. I'm Casey Ditzel, and until next time, this has been The Frozen Edge. Have a good one, everybody. Oh no, we've lost Timo. A Buffalo Bills joke to close off the Stanley Cup Final episode, and hopefully for Edmonton, it doesn't go the way he was just alluding to. But that'll do it for our show here. Hopefully, Timo is back for the next episode. Big thank you to everybody who tunes in, and very excited for what's to come. Thank you to Connor Daru assisting our show, digging through some stats to help craft our plays. Make sure to like, follow, and subscribe. We're here on YouTube and Spotify as well as X. Today's show will just be YouTube, a little bit longer in form, but we'll be back to the normal game by game breakdowns. We'll have our game one picks as well tweeted later this evening. Daily episodes and game by game tweets to bring picks, props, and parlays to help you make your selections with stats based analysis inside the NHL's betting market. He was Timo Seppa, no longer here. He'll be back next time. I'm Casey Ditzel. And until next time, this has been The Frozen Edge. Have a good one, everybody. Oh no, we've lost Timo. A Buffalo Bills joke to close off the Stanley Cup Final episode, and hopefully for Edmonton, it doesn't go the way he was just alluding to. But that'll do it for our show here. Hopefully, Timo is back for the next episode. Big thank you to everybody who tunes in.